Hello, hello. My name is April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is a podcast. Today I have a guest from the UK, Anaïs Comot. And come on in, Anaïs, and go ahead and let us know about your work as a career strategist.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, April. Very excited to be here with you this morning, with me this afternoon. So a little bit more about me. You probably hear from the accent or even from the name. My name is Anaïs. I'm French, but I've been living here in the UK for 8 years now. So time flies when you're having fun. I'm a career strategist, which means that I essentially work with professionals who are looking to make the most out of their career. They usually are the place whereby it's like a cross path and they're just wondering, where should they head next. When I'm talking about professionals I'm working with, I actually work a lot with women. Nothing against men, married to one, but I've realized through starting this work, there were a lot of common themes coming back again, such as negotiating your salary, having self-confidence, how to position yourself and your messaging when you're in a room surrounded by 100% of men, for example. So yeah, this is kind of what I do in a very nutshell, but I know we're going to have a chance to unpack this together.
Okay, so you work primarily with women.
Yes.
And I think before we started recording, you mentioned a lot of these women are in a career transition. Can you talk about how you came into that niche?
That's a very good point. So actually it sort of came to me as when I started, I knew I wanted to do the career coaching in the sense of like finding your purpose, because essentially I've experienced burnout very, very early in my career. And that very early made me question my relationship with work and how did I wanted to navigate my career, because I was in my like early 20s and I thought, if this is it for the next like 40, 50 years of my life, it's going to be very long and painful, right? So for me, the whole like work and career was super important in the sense of like finding a healthy relationship. I see it like any relationship. You've got friendships, you've got romantic friendships or romantic relationships, sorry. And work is the same. It's a relationship. So you have to find a healthy balance that definitely works for you. And so in that context, I definitely set up my coaching in a way that was tapping into a lot of introspection to make sure that people fully know themselves and therefore had the right keys to help them set up a career that would be in alignment with them, their personalities and their values. And yeah, in that context, I set up a program that was definitely dedicated around those areas. So naturally, I think I started to work with more and more people who were in that sort of transition phase. And usually what happens is that they've been working for like 7-10 years, and the young version of them who finished their studies or just decided to start their career was like, I want to go to X, Y, and Z level, or want to achieve X amount of responsibilities. And now that they've had it, they just realize what's next, or they just realize this is not necessarily the route that they want to continue to pursue anymore. Obviously, working with women, I do have a lot of my clients who have become mothers as well, and their priority has completely changed. Their world has changed upside down. So we are working together to realign all of this to make sure that it works for them at home, but obviously at work as well.
Okay, and you mentioned that you come from France.
Yes.
Did you find that a lot of your clients are also coming from France, or are they local to you?
So yeah, fun fact, definitely have a lot of, I would say maybe 50% of the clients I work with are French speaking, which means I also have some people, for example, from Canada, the East Coast, because we just have 5 hours difference. So it's very much
Oh,
manageable.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would say 50% are French speaking between Canada, the US, and here in London / the UK. Definitely have a lot of people from here. I don't necessarily have a lot of people who are born and bred in the same country. I think it's probably because of my profile as well. Like you probably can tell that I'm not a native English speaker. There is an additional layer to, who I am and how I ended up where I am today. So I think, yeah, there is something that I also have my client navigate, especially in the context of relocating or going to another country or coming back home, actually, to their home country, because they just feel like after a couple of years or a decade, they're ready to go back to their families.
Can we talk a little bit about your own personal experience with your journey moving to the UK and starting this business? Because it sounds like you had a past life. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you did previously for work and then how you ended up where you are now.
Absolutely happy to. Thank you for that. Be ready, brace yourself, because we're going to take a a walk down memory lane a little bit, but essentially I started working. I'm at the stage of my life where I've worked as much as I've lived, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So my relationship with work actually started when I was passing my A level. I think it's the equivalent of A level. Do you say A level in the US?
I don't actually know what A level is, so no.
High school diploma, when
Okay,
you're
yeah, high
18 years
school.
old. Is it
Mm-hmm.
18? Yeah, there we
Mm-hmm.
go. So yeah, baccalaureate in France, A level in the UK, and high school in the US. There we go. We've
Okay.
got three countries covered.
Yep.
Essentially, I was working 17 hours per week at McDonald's in parallel of studying for that. So that was quite intense. And actually, I realized through that I just really enjoyed the whole like going very quick and meeting a lot of people. And it was just very fast, but very structured at the same time. And in parallel, when I was studying my high school diploma was very much around the languages side of things. I just enjoyed the whole like speaking another language. So I was studying English and Spanish as well.
Oh, wow.
Very long story short, I ended up then taking like a 2-year technical degree after high school. And this involved a mandatory internship abroad. And
Okay.
I thought, I love English so much, I want to go to London. And so my first actually visit to London was 12, 13 years ago now. Can't remember. But yeah, I had a month there of internship. And I just had a blast. And I was there with a friend as well. But I just enjoyed the speaking English all day long. Obviously, back then I didn't understand like 100% of it, but I was trying my best. And I
Yeah.
realized I need to go back to that country. And I was just, 18 years old at the time.
Oh,
So I
wow.
thought, I'm not finished with this country. Then I went back to my study. When you're French, and I think it's the case for most of European countries, you don't just go through your bachelor degree, you actually go all the way up to your master degree. You pick a field of specialty, and then you start working. Which, in, for example, a country like the UK, you tend to go through your bachelor, you then go to work, you see what you like, what you don't, and then later down the line, you go through an MBA or another type of
Right. Yeah.
master's. There you go. I think it's the same in the US, isn't it?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, some people do go straight to the masters if they are very dedicated and have the money, but sometimes you have to stop and work for a few years to save the money to do a master's, because usually the bachelor's programs have more scholarships available, but masters,
Yeah.
either your work needs to help sponsor it, or you're going to be paying.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, like there are pros and cons to both approach, but what I like in terms of the one that you have, for example, here in the US, is that it just allows you, especially when you're young, you still don't know much in terms of what you like, what you enjoy, to realize which specialty you want to go into. But in France, it just doesn't go this way. I mean, you could, but it's just not the norm. So I ended up going through all the way up to the master degree, knowing I wanted to work abroad. Knowing I actually love the whole like internationality side of things and enjoying the relationship building and so on. So, I mean, very long story short, I ended up focusing into becoming a buyer, working in procurement. I don't know if
Okay.
that rings a bell.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay,
Cool.
like of physical products or like services?
Services, actually, yes. So indirect services. So very much what a company needs, to be fully working. So for example, it could be electricity, it could be like the facilities of the building that they have their employees in. Obviously, this was before COVID. But yeah, this kinds of things. And I ended up actually doing an internship for 1 year in France. So focusing solely into that for 1 year, which is very good because even though they get you to go all the way up to the master, it usually involves 1 year, like a gap year, which usually some people use for travel. Here in Europe, we usually use that gap year to actually do professional experience, which means that you've got some leverage additionally to your diploma to be employed by a company after you finish your studies. So I did that, and I had a blast because I was involved in a project with 17 countries. So I would start my day with Australia, then with Europe, then finish my days with America. I loved it.
Oh, wow.
Love the relationship building. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. And actually, this is when I did my first burnout because I was very much involved in that project. I actually took on that project. Someone burned out before me, like the person who was in charge initially of that project. She just had to go. She was just overwhelmed by the whole piece. And I ended up with like an Excel spreadsheet with like 40,000 lines of items that were purchased across those 17 countries. I just had to coordinate the whole thing. Yes, massive thing, like just hitting me in the face. And I was super keen, super motivated, energetic. I've been waiting years to actually come to that internship because it took me some time to get there, in the sense of like going through the studying and so on. And so I just really was keen to make it work. And obviously my manager, she was very keen and obviously wanted to, trust me in the process, because she saw me very energetic and enthusiastic. So she let me go. Until the point where we were in a meeting room, she asked me questions about like specific question around like the next step of the project. My brain went blank, stopped functioning, like Anaïs.x has stopped functioning, like this whatever screen that you get in your computer sometimes. That was me. Like,
does not
that was it.
compute. Oh no. So
Yeah.
I mean, was it just temporary, or was that?
So it was actually this one thing, but I could, like, the stress has been built up for like a couple of weeks before that. In terms of sleep, it was not great. In terms of eat, it wasn't great either. So, it just started to take a toll on my personal life as well. And so we had a conversation. I took a week off and we just, reorganized the whole thing. She was more hands-on. She led a little bit more and I was more on the backup. We find a way to make it work.
Okay.
But yeah, essentially, because at that point, I had been working for 6 years in parallel of my work. So I knew all about, working and so on, even though those were student jobs. It was not like a discovery of the working world to me. However, this was supposed to be my life. Like I was supposed to, do that for the rest of my life, if you put it this way. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is just going to be so painful, This is just not what I imagined.
The constant stress and pressure.
Exactly that.
Was it the manager that you were working with? Is it the same one who had also experienced burnout, or had that person already left?
No, it was actually the same manager.
Okay. And so together you both were working at maybe 50% and just trying to get through.
Yeah, exactly. Just push it through the line.
So one of my side jobs that I have right now is I've been helping write resumes. And one of the very most recent ones that I just finished, she was in procurement.
Yeah.
And so I learned a little bit about that. So there's a lot of negotiation too. Were you doing the like watching when the contracts were going to renew every year or two and then having to negotiate?
Absolutely, yes. So this is where the complexity comes in, because you essentially have 17 countries who did their own negotiation with their own suppliers. You're trying to consolidate the whole thing, identify suppliers who can cover those 17 countries with what they need, and like negotiate the whole terms of the contract. So this is where we were at the stage of,
Yeah,
so,
I can see that being high pressure. So how long did you stay in that position?
So I did 1 year. This was between my Master 1 and Master 2.
Okay.
I got back to finish my master. And then at the end of that, you obviously have to find like a final internship. And so in my case, I went back to these guys because I just love them, even though I did a burnout. I like any relationship, it was a 50-50. I should have shouted sooner. They should have supported me better. But like essentially, I see it as like a both ways of taking responsibilities. And so I really enjoyed the people who I was working with.
They were supportive.
Exactly. Even though the work was high pressure, they were great people. So I went back to them and said, guys, if you've got anything, let me know. And I went to one person in particular who was, looking after me during that 1 year. And he was like, he moved company in the meantime. He worked for EY, Big Four accounting firm, you've got EY, you got Deloitte, you've got PwC, those ones.
I don't know accounting firms, but keep going.
It's okay. Okay. Essentially, it's a big firm. And he worked for them. He gave my CV to the head of procurement back then, who was French too. She saw my CV because I did like an infographic CV. And she just loved it. She was like, we need to give this Frenchie a chance. She can go to Italy, Spain, or England. What does she want? It was like red carpet. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, so I decided to go back to London.
Of course you did. But you've had also studied Spanish at that point.
Yes.
So were you communicating with colleagues in Spain as well?
So when I was involved into the procurement work with countries, for example, in Latin America or in Mexico, yes, I was speaking, it was a broken Spanish, but yeah, definitely was trying to keep up with my Spanish level at that point. I would have not negotiated an entire contract in Spanish, but yeah, was able to maintain the day-to-day conversation.
Right. Okay. As needed.
It's fun. Exactly. So yeah, so we're in 2015 now, and I've just moved to London, working in procurement, and yeah, started to do the same thing I was doing before, but in a different setup and layout. I was working essentially in the scope of UK this time around, not globally, just in UK. So there was a change of pace, a change of scenery, and I had a blast again, met fantastic people. And then after a year, they gave me an opportunity to be part of the global team. So very much alike to the thing I was doing back in France.
Right.
Accepted it straight away, had fun. Again, this one, I think it was like 14 countries I had. It was, yeah, a good project. It was office stationery. So, the pen, the paper, all of these kinds of things.
Oh,
You would
okay.
think it's pretty straightforward, but actually it isn't. When each country is doing their own thing, I just had to consolidate.
Mm.
And here again, I ended up into this sort of similar project. So I could see that part of me was starting to feel, yeah, there we go, the stress, the pressure coming back up again. I would show up in the office on Saturday morning just to be ready for the next week ahead. I was like, oh, those are not healthy patterns that I can keep having. But I just push through. And this time around, actually, I mean, I was very honest with my manager. He was very supportive. I was one of his first managers as well. So he was finding his feet as a manager. Like, we had a very honest, transparent, supportive relationship. But yeah, essentially, even though I didn't do like a burnout like I did in Paris, I ended up having red plaque on my body.
What do you
Red,
mean? Like a big, like
like red
hives?
rashes, red
Yeah.
rashes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh
fun
no.
times, fun times.
From
Yeah.
stress?
Yep.
Wow. It's like an
Yep.
allergic reaction to stress.
Pretty much, yeah, or allergic relation to work, if you want to put it this way. But yeah. And so my boyfriend at the time, now husband, obviously saw that and he was like, well, I mean, this is your sign that you just have to do something about it, right? Like, if you're telling me it's under control, it's under control. But right now I can see it's not. Like, it's your body talking to you right now. So we have to do something about this.
Was it like shingles?
I know what shingle is.
Shingles
I think
is
it's quite
like
big, isn't it?
nerve pain too. It's like shooting pain. So maybe it wasn't shingles, but shingles can also come from stress. It's kind of like chicken pox for grown-ups and very,
Got
very,
it.
very painful.
Yeah.
So
So it
maybe
was
yours
not
is
that
more
level. Yeah.
dermatologic.
Exactly. Yeah. It was very located here as well, which was quite fun. The
Right where
speaking
you
and
can
chest
see.
area. Yes. As well. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, in that context, I was like, I have to do something different. I mean, I've been working for a couple of years now in that particular place. I was like, I have to do something. It has to be different. And obviously, this particular firm, so it's an accounting/consulting firm. And so I actually thought I could be a consultant because this would mean I would be changing projects more regularly because this thing I was involved with for like more than a year. It's the same thing for over a year. It's very, very heavy. So I thought actually changing the pace, scenery, type of people I'm involved with could work for me because I know I love relationship with people.
Right.
So I identified that I wanted to become a consultant. Obviously, they offered me, a couple of positions, one in like Dublin, Ireland, one here in London with the firm. And I was like, I think I need a change of scenery, like entirely.
Okay.
So I ended up working as a consultant for a company that had like less than 100 people. Again, great people. Like, I've joined for the people, had a blast. Like, they were fantastic. They were consultants, so very keen to like deliver high quality work and work, with their clients. So it was quite like still a high pace, high standard, but they were also very much, human, the approach, making sure that, everybody in the team was comfortable and so on. So yeah, work with them and did various projects. That was fun. I was like supportive on the back end. So for once I was not in the front end, which was very much easy for me, or easier at least for a while. And then I got put on a project where I was in the front run with a fantastic person. And we actually end up in a project where we essentially, I want to make sure that I take my time, choose my words, because I know there is a level of confidentiality here. But yeah, essentially, we ended up in a project whereby the company and the industry we were in was very traditional in its approach. So we had to find ways to optimize how they were working, the whole like their cost versus their revenue, and trying to maximize as much what they were doing because they were just losing a lot of money versus how much they were making.
Oh no.
So yeah, this was a year-long project. And the very long story short is that the work we did involved a redundancy plan, which means, unfortunately, we had to let go of a certain amount of people. And that was very hard for me because I was like, this is not what I want to be doing with my life. I mean, I hear that the work and the job has to be done, but I've got a very much ethical conflict here.
And you were involved in the layoff?
So involved in the sense that we identify, which areas might be impacted. I was not involved in those direct conversations, but was involved in the preparation so that they have all the information they had to navigate those conversations. And yeah, right here, I just had like a massive conflict of values in the sense that it had to be done and it was done with like, we followed the procedure. There's no problem about that. But I was just like, I want to be here for people. I don't want to be there to, destroy their life or just get them to be redundant. So yeah, it just didn't work for me. And I was at the stage whereby, because I had my master's degree, I felt like I had a lot of knowledge and I was like, pretty much hitting the ground running, and I was not learning new things. I just needed something new, something to like feed me intellectually as well. I hit like almost a plateau, if you'd like, in terms of like knowledge and in terms of discovering new things and challenging myself out of my comfort zone. As you can probably tell by now, I do love when things are just, changing regularly and getting out of
me
my
too.
comfort zone. There we
Variety
go.
is the spice of life, I like to say.
Here we are. And yeah, in that context, I was like, I just need to do something different. I need something else in my life. And so I just went into what could I do? And I thought, you know what, I could actually explore personal development opportunities and avenues. And again, very long story short, I ended up identifying like a 2 days coaching course that was being held in London, like a taster. So you get to come and you get to see what coaching is about, understanding the fundamentals of it. I was like, you know what? Yes, I've heard about this thing. Don't know exactly what it's about. It's not going to harm me in any way. It's just going to be a nice way for me to learn something new, meet some other people. Went there. It was Saturday and Sunday. Come back home Saturday night, and I was like, this is amazing. And so my boyfriend again was just like, oh my God, like, have they given you like any drugs or like what happened today?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's just like one of those love at first sight, revelations.
Yeah.
Like, this has to be in my life. I don't know how, when, which format it has to be in I need to do more of these. Like, this is really energizing me, right? So yeah, so this was, what was that? I think, 5 years ago now. Yeah, it is 5 years ago. And so I just passed my coaching qualification in parallel of my consulting work. So yeah, this is where I think we'll build up, because obviously the title of us is, yes, I work from home. So we'll talk about that. But this is where this consulting project I was doing was really intense, because we had to be on client site every day. I think it was something like an hour commute one way, so it was 2 hours a day or something like that, and it was like a 20-minute walk from the station. It was good for your health, but it was just very long.
That's longer.
Exactly. And so it was very much like, I would wake up at 6, I would do the coaching for an hour at 7, I would have breakfast 7:30, I would leave the house to be there by 9, and at night I would come back and I would do some coaching calls to pass my coaching qualification. So yeah, for like 6 to 8 months, I live like a double life.
Right. One foot in both worlds.
Exactly. Holding it, or trying to hold it together. And essentially I just put it in my diary, which was August 2019, which was 4 years ago. Yep, almost. And I just said, by this time, I'll have 3 months worth of rent aside. I'll have 3 months to solely focus on this full time. I'll make it work. And I just have to go and try this thing for myself now. That's what happened.
Just in time for a pandemic?
Exactly that. Well, funny you said that. Actually, at this point, we had Brexit. It was fun as well.
Oh, right. Oh my goodness.
Business.
You were
That's
already
okay.
in the deeps of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So far I had Brexit, and then obviously pandemic hit more around March 2020, obviously on that side of the globe. And yeah, now recession. So yeah, it's been fun for the past 4 years. But essentially, I'm so glad that all of those steps have happened, because each of them have told me a couple of things. First of all, it's really important for me to have people that I'm working with, that I can build a relationship that is, healthy and is trusted. And this is what happened with my previous, corporate experience. But what is also important to me is to love what I do, to have, meaning in what I do. And I just didn't get that from Excel spreadsheets and being involved into projects that just meant people were made redundant, or we just had to save X amount of money for like the pen and the paper we were buying. It has to be done. And I absolutely respect people who are doing that, because there is a lot of fun that can be found from that. But for me, it's just the people, essentially. I know it's a little cheesy, but yeah.
So it sounds like you're really into the relationship building part of your work. And I know there's like a whole business in just that. But the procurement with the contracts negotiation, that was a lot of relationship building. So what did you take from your corporate life now into your career strategist work?
Question. Structure. I love my Excel spreadsheets. Like, as I was just, preparing for today, I was just closing it. I do have my KPIs dashboard, and, I've got a lot of Excel spreadsheets. I love my processes. Every person that works with me gets their own contract. I love the whole structure around that I obviously got taught in corporate life that I'm taking now with me. Also, it's not necessarily something I took with me, but it's something I remember every day, is how lucky I am to get to choose, my rhythm. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a more detailed way, but the whole rhythm imposed by corporate life just didn't work for me. I've been lucky enough to come to London, so I didn't got burdened too much by some of the French culture that you sometimes find. Lucky for us, it's getting less and less, especially with COVID, but there is this whole culture in certain either types of industry or types of roles whereby you've got this whole présentéisme, which means, you have to be present. So it means it's not about the work that you do, it's what time do you show up to work, what time do you leave work. If you leave sooner than that, it means you're not doing your part, regardless of how much you're delivering. There you go. I can see your face. See?
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, that's a very traditional idea that a lot of companies from certain countries or certain generations still abide by. Like that idea is, we say butts in seats. Like, as long as your bottom is in your chair, you must be working. Where some people do better in, a 4-hour workday or a 2-hour spurt and then come back. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So, I think this model is broken, and obviously COVID has made a lot of awful things. There's been a lot that has happened, which is very unfortunate, but some of the positive that came up is that companies have been forced to evolve.
Yeah.
Some of them came back to the traditional way, but
yes.
I've noticed a change. I've noticed that some of them took that curve and be like, you know what, we realized they're actually more motivated when we give them more freedom. So by all means, carry on.
Right. I like to say that it pushed work from home forward probably about 5 years, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that. So in a nutshell, that's where I am. And obviously, no brainer for me when I started my own business. It had to be from home because I didn't have any money I could invest in being in the office as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
But is it necessary in your line of work to have an office? Because this is working for you, right?
Exactly. It's a very good point. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, like you're working from home all day long. This must be like very draining or hard not to see people. And I got a couple of things to say back on that, is that first of all, on the usual day, I either speak and or meet with like 5 to 6 different people. So it's very people driven and very energetic. And the conversation I do have are very, very deep. It's not like, oh, how was your weekend? No, it's like, okay, where are you when it comes to finding your values, your purpose? It's very much intentional. So this works. And also, I can't have an office because should I have an office like in a co-working space, for example, to meet people, I'll be locked in a booth. Like all of my conversations are 100% confidential.
Right.
There is no point of me renting a booth surrounded by people. I'd rather be at home by myself, comfortable, taking a break when I want to, and quietly, taking a break as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Does your husband also work from home?
He tends to work from home, I would say 1 to 2 days a week.
Okay. Yeah. My husband's home 2 days a week right now.
There we go.
And I was just curious, how does that work for you when you're both there?
So, fun fact. When COVID hit, we had a 1-bedroom flat. It was a very much a cocoon. We love this place, but it was a cocoon. It was our first place together. Very cozy, like super central London, so rent super expensive. So we had great location, but a very little space.
Yes. So
at that point, we obviously worked from home all the time, the two of us. And it was very hard in the sense that it was very, I don't know how to describe it, but the intensity, you didn't have space to wind down. Like wherever you were going, one was in the bedroom, one was in the living room, which was also the kitchen.
Yes.
There was a laptop and there was work involved in a sense. So that was hard. And we realized that we were still in the pandemic because obviously this thing we thought will just pass after a couple of months. No, it took years, right, to get away from that. Anyhow, we actually realized we're literally paying a premium to be central London, where we just don't have access to shops and restaurants because they're still closed. So
Oh,
yeah, so we decided to move in this place right now. I would say, 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago now. And we really made sure that we had obviously 2 bedrooms, and we had one bedroom, which was this one, which is mine, which is the spare bedroom for guests. And we had also our own bedroom, which does have a space, like a separate space where he can have his desk,
good.
which means the living room and kitchen is a safe space away from any work for the both of us. And this
Mm-hmm.
works, to answer your question.
Yeah. When during the pandemic, we had my husband and I were both working from home, and we had 3 children who were working from home for their school. And so we had one person in the kitchen and 3 people working in bedrooms and me working in a closet.
Oh, wow.
But the tricky part was the person in the kitchen. Nobody could go in and just start like cooking or washing the dishes because it was too noisy for the video call that he was in. And so we had to adjust.
And how did you adjust?
Um, my husband was originally working in my son's bedroom,
Okay.
and then my daughter would be in her bedroom. My little girl would be in the living room, and my son would be in the kitchen. And we eventually moved my husband also into our bedroom. So when his work gave him a desk and a chair, like they paid for it, we just put it next to our bed. I mean, there really wasn't a choice because we have a small home. And that got my son up into his own bedroom. My kindergartner was basically just running around the house all day. That first year was pretty rough. And they were home for 16 months, and now they're back at school. So I work either in this is a closet attached to my bedroom, and my husband's still in our bedroom, and then the rest of the house is, the kids are back in school now.
Yep.
So sometimes I switch to the kitchen just for a change of pace if I am working on something that doesn't require a video call, or if it's just my husband and I at home together, he'll sometimes just wait to cook if I'm in a call.
And does that work for you?
It's working. I have back problems, and so I have to have changing locations at times just to different chairs are better. And right
Yeah.
now my kitchen chair is working for me, sometimes better than this one that's official. My husband, sometimes if he's not here, then I'll work at his desk as well. He has a sit-stand desk, and so
Yep.
sometimes I'll stand at his desk. Yeah, that's
Yes,
what
I
you're
have.
using?
Yes.
I was
It's very
wondering if
good.
you were standing.
I am, yes. I will see. I mean, we'll see where this conversation takes us. I usually do half, like when I've got an hour call, I do 30 minutes standing, 30 minutes seating. But for now, I'm feeling good. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would say anyone listening this, anyone either already working from home or considering working from home, definitely if you've got the space and the budget for it, investing in a standing desk is the best thing that you could do, especially if you work from home like all week long, all
Yes.
day and all week long.
So technically the desk that I have here in the closet was like an old version of a sit-stand desk.
Okay.
But it was manual, and I can lift it high. And then I can put my computer up on like a riser or some
Okay.
boxes even, but
Yep.
I can't do that easily in the middle of our call. Like it would
I hear
be,
you.
and I would be going back to back to back to back to back with my clients or with my students because I was teaching as well. And so if I had a break in between, could I actually make that transition? And it was just too cumbersome. So I'm more likely to, because my workflow has changed, I'm more likely to just change locations.
Okay. Which works as
Yeah.
long as it works for you.
Because at my kitchen table, it's a tall table. And
Oh,
so I can
perfect.
either stand at it or I can sit in my chair, which is a high up chair.
Awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your current workflow. And
Yeah.
you said you meet with 5 or 6 clients a day. Are you keeping a regular schedule? Or are you still doing the early mornings and late evenings to catch your clients outside of their work hours?
So I usually meet with 5 to 6 people a day. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of clients, so in terms of like proper coaching, I would say it's between 6 to 7 hours a week. I can't do too many coaching calls in a day because obviously they're very much, intense in the sense that I need to be focused properly, here to support my clients. So I would say in terms of the schedule, I think this was your question, right? Schedule related. At the beginning, I would just do everything like all together, especially when I first started. Obviously, we didn't talk about that, but Like, you know, I've just had 3 months set aside to pay the rent and then set up my business. Take years to set up your business. So actually, after 3 months, I didn't have any money set aside. I had a student loan to pay back, and I just had to find ways to pay the rent as well. So I actually ended up doing some freelancing coaching, which was perfect because it still allowed me to, you know, grow my coaching experience as well and, you know, finalize in terms of the approach I wanted to follow, blah, blah, blah. The point is, with the freelancing work I was doing, it was like a massive wave in my face of like the time that was required of me. So I ended up having things all over the place. Like I just said yes to everything.
Yep.
Didn't have any structure. Took me a couple of like months and even years to do the setup, and even like on a yearly basis I revised that. But long story short, I do have meeting freeze Mondays and Fridays. So if you want to get a hold of me and have a conversation, it's happening between Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay.
Full disclosure, anyone again listening this is a Monday. So the Monday we're having a meeting, if you can put it this way, but this is not what I consider a meeting. It's a fantastic conversation with you, April. And this is exactly why I save this space. Like Mondays are very much about working on the business with my personal assistant or with my social media manager, is doing the things strategically for the business that I know are going to help me, the projects I want to work on, or having fun times like right now.
Yep.
And then Tuesday to Thursday, very much focus days on the coaching side of things, on meeting new people, because I also offer free discovery session. I do rely on the fact that everybody on this planet should be able to be happy at work, even though it might mean that work is actually something that you have to do because you have to pay rent. That's okay, but let's find a way for you to like practically make it work whilst being to an extent happy. So
Right.
I do have also those calls during the week. And then Friday, I have put that in place for like the past 6 months. I usually finish at 2 p.m.
Good. Yeah. So Monday you're doing a podcast, but podcasting is kind of like marketing for entrepreneurs because it's getting your face out there, and you know, I'm sharing the word, you're sharing the word. You also run your own podcast, right? HerCode?
I do. Yeah.
Is it
absolutely.
called HerCode?
It's called Her Career, HerCode, yes, because I do have guests to talk about the careers.
Why don't you tell us about that?
Absolutely, yes. So I mean, again, you probably know that after I don't know how many minutes with me now, I do love people. I do love conversations. I do love these things.
Me too.
And so, yeah, selfishly speaking, to be honest, I thought actually I'd love to have, because I do have like, I'm very, very lucky with my work. I've got privileged conversations on a daily basis with women who are being completely open and transparent about where they are, where they want to go, da, da, da. And what I've realized is that it's selfish of me to just have those conversation one-on-one. I mean, it's important for them to know that they're not alone facing the similar, you know, challenges. Like essentially for anybody, wherever you are in your career or wherever you are just in life in general, like there is probably someone else on this planet who does face the same challenges. And so I thought it was really important for me to get those stories out there as to the challenges that potentially people have overcome in their career, or even the things that have happened that they're just proud to talk about, and so on. And so this is how the whole podcast came up. And
I mean, yeah, that's similar to mine.
Same for you. Yeah, there you go. What happened for yours? What was the idea behind the podcast?
Well, my son asked, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you have anything
that's
more?
Okay. I did, but I'll pick it up after. Don't worry.
My son asked me on Saturday at our family lunch, Mom, what is the point of your podcast? And I was like, and basically I just said what you said. You know, I wanted people to be able to know that they're not alone in working from home, and that if someone else has overcome a challenge, maybe someone listening will learn from that and it'll help them.
Absolutely. Love that. Well, exactly the same philosophy behind mine. I mean, this is one of the reasons I was so happy and excited to be on yours. Thank you very much again for having me. And so, yeah, and so the whole podcast essentially aims at bringing women from different, you know, industries and backgrounds to share their stories. And I did the first season last year, and he ended up being listened into like 47 countries, which I didn't plan for. And I thought so exciting. The whole thing around, you know, me working with expats from all over the globe. And for those who don't know that, an expat is obviously someone who lives outside, you know, their native country. Obviously, this is who I am, being French and living here in London. And I thought, okay, there is something here. So this season 2 that I already started and putting out there, been very intentional about still opening it to, any industries and type of profile. But I've actually tried to, as much possible, varies the type of nationalities that they were from, just to get a variety of profiles.
Right.
And yeah, this has been fun because essentially the outcome so far is that wherever you're coming from, you still have the same, challenges, especially being a woman navigating your career. Not to say that everybody has the same challenges, but yeah, it's quite interesting to see the similarities and also the complexities around navigating a career in a country that you're not originally from or to.
What percentage of your clients would you say are working from home?
Good question. Not that many, because most of my clients are full-time employee. So I would say maybe 10 to 15%.
Okay. I mean, a lot of full-time employees work from home as well.
Correct. That's right. But the client that I do work with still have an office and still have a team to manage, and they just enjoy going to the office, being with their teams.
And what are some of the common challenges that you're finding a lot of your clients are facing?
Common challenges, I would definitely say self-confidence, in the sense that feeling that what they have to say is not necessarily something that other people want to hear, or not feeling comfortable enough to speak it out loud and being comfortable by saying that message out loud. They usually have fantastic ideas. They usually have, propositions to shift things around, but they just don't feel 100% comfortable about expressing out loud those ideas. Or even, when they're going through the interview process, not necessarily feeling comfortable about speaking out about what they want, and I always say an interview is a two-way street, right? It's as much for the company to know if you're the right fit as to you to decide whether or not this company is the right fit. So yeah, I would say this is one of the main challenges, like essentially speaking your truth and tell the rest of the world what you want and deserve, because anybody deserves to actually say what they truly want. I mean, you might not get it, but at least, you'll be truly intentional about speaking out loud to the rest of the world what is it that you are after.
And I suppose
yeah.
that goes into negotiating salaries and things too.
100%. The whole like going through rounds of promotion, negotiating the salary, or even just asking for more responsibilities, being more visible as well. Some of my clients ended up one way or the other put in the corner, and then they're very not happy. They know they can do so much more. So it's about putting them back in the light, whether it's in the same company or it's in another company, to actually truly shine. So yeah, I would say this is the number one challenge. The second challenge is very much around redefining their relationship with work. So they ended up in a position, it's especially true because I would say 70 to 80% of my clients are working moms.
Mm-hmm.
And so very on the spectrum, some of them are about to become mothers, some of them are young mothers, some of them have been mother for a couple of years but still haven't found the balance. So the one challenge that they do have is definitely navigating the whole piece, the whole expectations, both from the family side but also from the career side of things, and trying to manage this out. So this is a big challenge as well that some of my clients are facing.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've personally faced with your career change, and especially the part with working from home?
Good question. I would say for me, it's about the motivation. You're home by yourself. You're running your own business. So essentially, you get to decide the pace at which you decide to move. And it's easy because it's home to feel like you can just binge Netflix in the middle of the day. Guilty, I've done that. Doesn't get me anywhere. So yeah, I would say the biggest challenge is that is like, yeah, it's really, really like tuning in with yourself and realize, okay, how much can I actually accomplish today? Like, which state am I in? What's realistic? What I have planned, because I can tell you my calendar is scheduled almost by the minute, so I know what my week looks like, and obviously gets adapted. But yeah, it's like, what state am I in, and is this realistic, or do I need to adjust things? And it took me a lot of time to be okay with taking some days slower than others, but actually realizing that by doing that, which means I'll have spike of motivation and productivity, and then some other times where I'll have less productivity, and that's okay. So it's the whole like navigating this. I don't know if I'm making any sense right now, because I started with motivation and then talked about the productivity side of things, but yeah, I would say it's my challenge.
It works for me. When I started the podcast, for instance, time management you're talking about, things that I thought I could figure out in 2 hours took me 2 full days. And if you've never done something before, you don't know how long it's going to take. And like you said, starting a business, you thought, you could do it in 3 months, and it literally takes years. The other thing for me is when I agreed to a project that's, if I'm going to get paid $250, I think, oh, I can finish this in 3 or 4 hours. And in fact, it takes me 15 to 20 hours. And like after you've done it a few times, you're like, I need to charge accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Yeah, the whole like time management, and also like you said, like when you're doing things for the first time for yourself as well, it's just, yeah, it's taking longer than expected. You don't see that, but right there is like a A3 piece for each month of the year, which means I've got 12 of them. So I physically see what 2023 is about, as in I physically see the entire year on my wall to remind me of like how much time there is and how much time realistically I can do, and also what's happening personally in terms of events that I want to be there for my family. Because something that we haven't talked much about, but is implicit, is the fact that because I've been here for 8 years, it means I've been away from my family from 8 years.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so one of the motivation that I had setting up my business also was to be able to work from there as much as I wanted, be able to go back as much as I needed. I literally was in France yesterday, and yeah, the entire week. Yeah, and it happened like a couple of times a year, and that's okay. I can still, do my calls with my clients. I can still work accordingly, and that's perfect. So work from home for me has a double meaning. It's to work from home here, but it's a work from home, my home country, and this works perfect.
Oh, good. Yeah. And you have a place that you can stay when you stay with family?
Yeah, so usually, I mean, as long as I've got Wi-Fi and a quiet room, that works. Like you, like I've ended up in cupboards, but they were big enough for me to have like a space to hold my laptop and have a
Yeah.
conversation with my clients. So that absolutely works for me.
Oh, wow. Okay. So one of the questions that I always like to end with is just if you are talking with someone who wants to work from home for the first time, do you have any advice?
Yes. Or at least a question back. Obviously, being a coach, I would say for anyone who is, considering working from home, wants to work from home full time, what is it that you want to get out of it? Like truly, what's in it for you? What's the benefit? Like make sure you identify those clearly, because you want to make sure that this is your motivation that will be at the heart of your organization. And I'm sure, and I know, obviously I've watched some of your episodes, I think you've talked about many things, such as, for example, having separate space. Like those are the practicalities of it. But the one advice I will give additionally to those, because those are very important as well, is very much tapping into your inner motivation. Because there will be days where you'll be like, what on earth am I doing? Like, why am I here again? And you can just hold on to this again and think back. And I know for me, my motivations working from home was I need a space where I feel safe, comfortable, so I can hold those safe and confidential calls for my clients. It's very much important for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also need some flexibility, like I was saying to you earlier, about working from home in this literal sense and meaningful sense of being able to go back to France when I want to.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Fine.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Anyone listening this and again thinking about working from home, just remember that if this is really what you want, we'll make it work, and it might work by transitioning. For example, if you're working with an employer, it might be about asking them an additional day. Like think about not necessarily just switching on and off, like I want to work from home, let's make it happen. Think about like a phasing approach as well.
Nice.
That could work for you as well, to get settling into that new routine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So instead of 5 days a week in the office, maybe 4 days in the week in the office and 1 day at home, and then gradually. So you can keep your same job. You don't necessarily have to change jobs if you were thinking about working from home.
Exactly.
You can, but you don't have to.
Absolutely agreed with that. So yeah, that would be my final thought. And obviously I want to say thank you very much for having me, April.
Anaïs, where can people find you?
Oh yeah, good point. I usually hang around on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Anaïs Comot. You can also find me on my website. So it's HerCode, as in HerCode.co.uk. Here in the UK, it's quite fun with that. And that's pretty much where you can find me, LinkedIn or my website.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. This has been April Malone with Anaïs Comot. And we'll see you next time. For any listeners who are wanting to be on the podcast, go ahead and drop me a note at april@yesiworkfromhome.com, or you can go to the podcast and fill out the guest interest form at www.yesiworkfromhome.com/podcast/podcast/guest. All right. Thank you, Anaïs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, April.